Hi, everyone. I'm Saul Lustgarten. I lead product here at Tulip. Welcome to this session. Today, we're going to be talking about how we're building a platform for the next generation of manufacturing. So before we begin, I guess I'll give you a quick introduction in case you don't know what Tulip is. So we are a manufacturing app platform. What this means is you can use Tulip to build applications that let you optimize anything in your operations. And these applications are lean, so you can create, test, and deploy them quickly. You can iterate and improve. They're no code and visual. So today you've been hearing a lot about how no code is empowering citizen developers, and that's really at the core of what we do. So you can have user-friendly interfaces that let you build apps for all types of use cases and build logic without knowing how to code. Tulip is also interactive, so you can connect with machines, with tools, and with sensors. It's data-driven, so you can automatically collect production data and integrate it all under a single roof, and it's intelligent, so you can create workflows with dynamic logic to really digitize any process in your operation. So today, we want to focus around the future of the platform, and we're going to be talking about 5 focus areas. And for each of these focus areas, we'll talk about its past, its present with Tulip, and its future. So what we're building and working on for the future of this area. So the areas we'll be covering today are, number 1, augmenting human activities. Number 2, collecting and analyzing data. Number 3, supporting continuous improvements. Number 4, serving GXP and validated customers in validated environments. And number 5, how you share best practices. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started with the first area of focus. So this is all about how we're augmenting people with digital workflows. So if you recall yesterday, before Tulip, it was all about automation. And this is really about replacing people, which resulted on people being left to work with very precarious tools in the shop floor. So you have paper-based work instructions. You have reliance on tribal knowledge. You have confusing interfaces that make it hard to do your job and make it easy to make a mistake. It's interfaces and different tools that are hard to use and slows you down as a worker. So today with Tulip and other tools, it's all about connectivity. So it's about replacing paper with digital interfaces that are user-friendly. It's about creating dynamic work instructions to guide workflows. It's about eliminating human error with connected devices that allow you to poke a yoke your operations so that you don't make mistakes. This is all enabled by our app builder with triggers to define logic, as we said before. It's all drag and drop, and it lets you connect with devices as well. So it's all about the connectivity. But really what we're building is towards a future where we go beyond connectivity. It's not about replacing people like it used to be. It's not only about connecting them like it is today. It's really about fully augmenting people in the shop floor and across your operations. So what this means and how we're doing it is using machine learning and artificial intelligence for reducing mistakes, for increasing productivity and streamlining workflows. So we actually recently launched a new capability in Tulip that lets you, that we see as a first step in this direction. So it's called Vision, and it lets you leverage machine vision to do this, to augment your workers. So you can define regions of interest, you can detect activities, you can provide feedback in real time to operators, and the end result of this is people can work faster, they can collect better data, they can make less mistakes. So with that in mind, let's see a couple of examples of how this works in action. So if you've been hearing to the other sessions today, you have probably seen Tulip in action. Here we have many examples of how Tulip applications that you build with no code can be used in production to guide different types of workflows, from interacting with a machine to building an assembly to cleaning up a line before use. And the end result, again, is what you want it to be: increased productivity, lower errors, and so on. In the next slide, we can see how this is working in action. So here we have an example of applications that are connected with devices. So they're leveraging our Internet of Things capabilities. And as you can see, the devices help you walk through the process much faster. So the operator or the person going through the process can be more productive and make less mistakes. In this example, for example, you're seeing a vision application, and you can see how the vision capability is detecting where the hand reaches to a certain area. And this provides feedback for the operator so that if he or she makes a mistake upon reaching, the system tells them so that they can avoid that mistake or correct it. So that's how we're augmenting people, and that's where we're headed towards. It's not about replacing people. It's not about connecting them, or it's about augmenting them. So with that, let's go to the next slide so we can talk about how the second area of focus, which is all about data. Right, so it used to be that in order to collect data, you had to do it manually in shop floors, right? So it's all about manual data collection. If you want to do a time study, you need to go and manually time the work being done, manually write it down. Potentially, you could go and type it out on a computer, but it's all manual. Or maybe you want to collect it via a system, but it's a rigid system like an MES or an ERP that makes you adhere to its parameters, and you can't really define your own data model. So this results really in a lot of data loss, but also in siloed data. So you have different data collected by different systems that are not really talking to each other, and you can't really leverage the whole data set that you're collecting. So today, this is changing with digital data collection, and we saw an example in the previous slides of how IoT apps can help you guide through workflows. But if you're using those applications, you can also use them to collect data. So with IoT-enabled applications, you can collect data automatically from people interacting with the application, but also from the machines connected to the application, from sensors, from cameras, and from other systems that you may have in your shop floor. You can even integrate them with other third-party applications like your ERP or your MES, so that everything flows in to the same system, everything lives under the same roof, so that you can build analytics reports and share them with your teams, as you can do with Tulip analytics, Tulip dashboards, and so on. But this is all the stepping stone into what we're building, which really is Smart Insights. So Smart Insights is about building tools that let you know that something's wrong before you even know it. And to do this, we're leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence, so we can do things like predictive maintenance, give you cross-industry insights, and so on. So on this slide, you can see the IO Gateway, which is one of our proprietary hardware devices, which you can use to connect your devices, machines, and so on into Tulip. We're hardware agnostic, but so you don't have to use the Tulip Gateway, as you might know, but it is something we offer. And you can also see the Edge MC, which is a newer, cheaper, faster, smaller gateway device edge device rather, that you can use to connect, again, with your machines or with certain devices. And it's very powerful. And actually, we recently announced that Node-RED compatibility, so you can connect it and build your own Node-RED flows to extend the functionality that comes out of the box with the Edge MC device, so that, for example, you can connect with MQTT machines and do more flexible workflows to fit your needs. So on the next slide, we can see some examples of how you can use Tulip also to connect to your machines, because obviously the data story, a big part of it is connecting with machines, which is one of the largest data generators in your shop floor. So with Tulip, you can build applications that connect with your machines and parse the data to do interesting things like OEE, or help your shop floor also with the machine maintenance, machine turnover, and so on. So it's another example of how Tulip helps with collecting machine and shop floor data. You can see how this sets up in the next slide, where you can see the machine, like our machine page, and how you define different attributes to the machine. And you not only define them, but you can also extend the data schema of the data you're collecting for the machine, so that if you have, for example, downtime on the machine, you can add the reason for the downtime and augment the data set that you're collecting on Tulip, and then do more richer analysis on this. So for us, this data piece is not only about traditional metrics like OEE that is important, but at this point it's kind of commoditized. For us, it's about the overall process effectiveness and letting you integrate the data from the machine, the device, but also from the people around them, to get a fuller picture and a more holistic view of what's really going on in your operations. And finally, you can see some Tulip analytics in action. These are super easy to set up. You can set them up just like you would in Excel or in another BI tool, and you can share each one of these across your operation. You can share with external stakeholders as well. And we found that pretty useful with our customers. So with that, let's go over with the third focus area, which is continuous improvement of systems deployment. So we've talked about augmenting people, we've talked about collecting data. This piece is really about improving all of the systems that support your operation, and doing that in a continuous way. So I think it's interesting, because if you think about the lean movement, it's across manufacturing. It's all over manufacturing, but the one place it never reached is the systems, is the tech tools that you're using to manage your operations. So it used to be very top-down, right? You used to be, and for a lot of companies, it still is top-down before Tulip, right? So you have a top-down digital transformation initiative, usually coming from somewhere on top, who has an idea or has a mandate for it. And the implementation of it usually is expensive, not only in terms of money and resources, but also in terms of time. If you want to implement a traditional system, you have to go through a very long process to scope it, and a very long POC, and a very long implementation cycle. It can take months. Sometimes we've seen it take even longer than a year. And it ends up being very expensive and not agile at all, not lean at all. So one of the main drawbacks is that only the technical users, who tend to be removed from the end problem, from the operation, from the day-to-day, they're driving it. So it ends up being misaligned incentives between what the project is trying to accomplish and what the people on the shop floor are trying to solve. So we're solving that with bottom-up digital transformation, and this is one of the benefits of tools like Tulip, that no code really empowers everyone to contribute, and it lets the end users, the people closer to the operations, to take control of the digital transformation. And the result of that is that you can really have much faster time to value, because instead of doing an overhaul of your entire system, you can give the people in the shop floor, the people closer to the problem, a tool to solve that individual problem. And if they do that, then the return on investment is much faster, and the rate at which you can improve that is much faster. So this is all about the bottom-up digital transformation and the self-serve adoption of solutions that, as I said, facilitates a faster time to value. But this is only part of the story. What we're building for, it's a really, truly agile world in which you don't need to build this content and this application from scratch. You can customize existing content. You can treat content as Lego pieces that you can build to use to build a full solution on your shop floor. And you have power users who can then extend Tulip and their systems to do whatever they want, and they're not constrained by any one system. So on the next slide, you can see how it works with Tulip. Building the applications with no code is literally a drag and drop process, where you can select the assets you want to link to. You can build the logic without knowing how to code, and you can push this to production. And then on the following slide, you can also see how testing these applications is actually pretty intuitive, and you can do it without polluting your production data. The feature you're seeing there is called development mode. So as you're building your application, you can test it and save those tests without impacting your production data. The fourth area of focus that we're going to be talking about today is GXP and regulated user needs, which, as you know, has its own set of unique challenges. So it used to be all about paper validation, and for most companies, it still is, right? So it's all about SOPs in binders, separate systems for managing each one, manual testing and validation, and this all results in siloed data and slow processes, and very cumbersome and slow adoption of new systems. So what we're doing to change this, and this is available today, is collecting data for compliance as part of your workflow, so that you can collect data both on master data changes and production data changes without really needing to change the way you work and doing rework. We're also working to let you define and assign approvals, or rather, this is something you can already do. You can define and assign approvals for change management. You can do digital test evidence for compliance, and you have easy to follow apps for doing everything from audits to batch approvals to line clearance, and so on, all leveraging features like electronic signatures and electronic history records and so on within Tulip. And this is all building towards a future where it's all about continuous validation, right? So where you have more flexibility to define the change management that best fit your business and your operations. So you can do custom roles, permissions, custom approval workflows, and you have more ways to interact with both your production data and your master data to support your internal audits and your external audits as well. So we're also, along that path, we're also working on more automated testing, so that adopting new versions of Tulip is just an easier process. So it's streamlined, so you don't have to revalidate the whole system in order to adopt it. So you can see a couple of examples here in the next slide of applications that our customers have built to manage some of these processes. You can see how you can, in a very flexible way, build a solution that lets you capture production data, see how it's changed over time. You can see the history of that record and that batch. On the next slide, for example, you have an example of that where you can see all the changes for an approval of a batch, but also for internal audit of your system. And this brings us to the final focus area that we'll be covering today, which is sharing best practices across your organization. This used to be all about proprietary knowledge, right? It's about expert knowledge. You have to hire consultants. You have to do proprietary training. It's very expensive. It's out of reach for most companies. But we're changing that with shared knowledge. So we recently launched a Tulip library with a host of applications that you can adopt on your factory, on your shop floor. These are based on best practices that we have developed along with our customers, so that you can leverage what other people have done in order to bring best practices to your factory through applications. So for example, if you want to improve how your company does lean, it used to be that you have to go and hire consultants to come and train everyone and so on. And while that might still help, it's also true that with applications, you can just make this part of the way you do your regular work. You can use applications to share best practices, to share learnings and so on. So the library is one of the ways in which we're facilitating that. But we also have the Tulip community, which is a peer-to-peer learning network where you can go and connect with other users, both to become a power user of the system, but also to see how others are approaching their digital transformation and get inspiration of new use cases that maybe you haven't thought of, and connect with other people in your industry or across industries to see how they're tackling their challenges and leveraging technology to improve. And lastly, we have Tulip University, which is a completely new way of sharing knowledge and empowering your workers to retrain, reskill, upskill, and gain the skills they need in order to drive the digital transformation of your company. So Tulip University is completely free. It's all available online. You can do it at your own pace, whether at work or at home. We have all the resources you need in order to learn how to leverage all these new technologies like no-code app building, Internet of Things, and many more. And we're continuously adding more and more content in there to support you as you grow as a citizen developer. But the vision here, what we're working towards, is really an open source community where knowledge flows much more richly. If you look at every other area of work, like software development or any other area, really, there's just a plethora of rich online communities where you can find knowledge, you can share knowledge, and this allows everyone to just learn faster and improve faster. And this is really what we're building towards. We're building an ecosystem where it's not only the end users and the app builders, but it's also the OEMs and the other content creators that may or may not be in your company. So people can build more than applications. You can find connectors, you can find components for your applications, you can find best practices, and so on. And our end goal here really is to build that place for manufacturing operations. So with that in mind, you can see here an example of the app library. This is live right now on Tulip. You can go to tulip.co and find it, and you can browse all the content we have around all types of use cases for all types of business challenges. Once you find one you like, you can easily add it to your account. If you're not a customer, you can try it for free. So it's very, very interesting. I encourage you to check it out. And in the next slide, I just want to stress again, we have Tulip University with free training for all types of skills that you might want to learn to drive your digital transformation. We have community, which is also open for everyone. Even if you're not a user, you can go and see what customers are saying. And we're also launching a podcast today that is letting us share more stories from people from the trenches. So you can see how other companies are, using Tulip, but other tools as well to drive the digital transformation of their operations. So it's all about being open with the knowledge that we're gaining and with the best practices that we're developing here at Tulip. So I hope you check these resources out. So with that, I want to thank you for joining, and I guess now we have some time for a Q&A. So let's see if you have any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Saul. So we have 3 questions here. So you talked about Tulip being a part of a larger ecosystem. What integrations are currently available with Tulip?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a lot of integrations available with Tulip. We have integrations, for example, with systems like Shippo for doing shipping. We have integrations with systems like Shopify that have been developed by our customers, actually. So you can connect directly your Shopify store. But we also have integration with Microsoft products like Team and Outlook. We have integrations with Google products like geolocation with Google, and we have customers that have used that to build a application with geolocation that show the map. And it's very flexible. We also have integrations with more industrial systems like ERPs. For example, we have an integration with NetSuite, integration with Onshape for your CAD models. And the point I want to drive, though, is that even though we have a lot of out-of-the-box integrations and we're continuously adding more of these, the point is that it's quite straightforward to build this on your own. We have connectors. So a lot of our customers, what they do is if we don't have an integration for them readily available, they just build it on their own. It's pretty simple and straightforward. And in fact, a lot of the ones that I mentioned have been built by our customers themselves.
Perfect, thank you. So another question here is, what is a recent feature that you're most excited about?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I mean, we've been launching a lot of new features and a lot of exciting features. A lot of it, I think, depends on what you're using Tulip for. But 2 that I'm particularly excited about is we covered some of them in the presentation. But one is the vision. So the new vision capabilities that we're announcing are super exciting because they really let you turn an off-the-shelf camera into a very powerful sensor. So you can take a camera that costs less than $200, put it in a station, and you can define regions of interest to interact with the camera and for the camera to see when certain actions happen. This is just the beginning. We're planning on adding more and more what we call detectors to the vision capabilities. But even with the current existing capabilities, is quite powerful, and we're seeing some very interesting things being done by our customers. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Another recent launch that I'm excited about is Edge MC, which, as I mentioned, is a new edge device that you can use to connect to your machines, to your devices. And I'm excited about it because it's its form factor is smaller, it's a cheaper and faster device than the Gateway, but also because you can run it with Node-RED, which is quite powerful, and we have a lot of customers that use Node-RED already in their shop floor to connect different devices. So using Node-RED plus Edge MC, I think is going to be pretty exciting to see what customers come up with, because with Node-RED, you can build your own workflows and you can connect devices, you can parse data coming in, you can extend the out-of-the-box functionality that comes with Edge MC. So I'm excited to see what our customers were pretty inventive come up with both Vision and Edge MC with Node-RED.
Awesome. All right, thank you. I think we have time for this one last question. So do you currently have GXP customers using Tulip?
Yes, absolutely. So we covered some of the things on the GXP slides that we talked about today. Let me clarify. We currently have a lot of GXP customers in industries like life sciences, aerospace, defense, and so on, that are using Tulip right now, and they've audited us and they validated their use of Tulip. What I meant to say through the presentation is that we're continuously working on improving that experience and making it easier for users in highly regulated industries to adopt Tulip and be able to leverage the latest features without having to go through a full lengthy validation process.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's all the questions that we have for today.
Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in community.